Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Allison Shaw, and I'm with Capital City Financial Partners. Pleased to bring you this presentation today to focus a little bit more on women when it comes to retirement. So as a partner of Capital City Financial Partners, I've been working with a bunch of people for over a decade now. And we hear a lot of the same common questions and concerns that come up, which is why we developed this presentation. We want to address the specific and unique retirement risks and challenges that women specifically face when it comes to planning for your future. So we are going to be covering a lot of information today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, Alex Suggs, one of our financial advisors, is on standby watching the chat. So feel free to type a question into the chat box and he'll respond to you, or I can always address questions at the end. But thank you for being here today, and I hope you learned something new. So during this presentation, we're going to be covering a lot of complex subjects, and we're going to simplify them, so much so that you might be saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And just all this is saying is before you jump into anything, make sure that you're consulting with a CPA or a financial advisor or even Google, just making sure that before you make any decisions, it makes sense for your specific situation. So why are we here today? As women, we face specific risks and challenges when it comes to retirement. All of us in general have specific circumstances, needs, and preferences in general in life, but especially when it comes to retirement planning. And there's a lot of big feelings that come with retirement. The biggest one that we see and hear about is, am I going to have enough money to last me through the entirety of my life? A lot of people worry about that. Then there's things like, what will rising tax rates do to the money that I've saved? Or women specifically might worry about what's going to happen to my loved ones if I have to go into long-term care. Will that cause stress on them? There's a lot of things that we think about as women when it comes to the people around us. So there's some big feelings when it comes to retirement, which is why we are going to address some of those today. Our passion is in helping people prepare and feel comfortable, confident, and secure in their retirement and their future. And since we're so passionate about that, education is something that we're really focused on, which is why we like to provide things like today. So we've seen a big shift in the financial planning industry in the past decade or two. Women are increasingly taking ownership of their household's financial management. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but some of the biggest ones are simply demographic and social changes in America. So today, women are working more, earning more, owning more, and making more financial decisions. There's an increasing proportion of women in the workforce, so they have more money of their own. And then Americans are marrying later in life, which causes a longer period of solo asset accumulation for both men and women. And then finally, the prevalence of divorce sometimes forces people into taking ownership of their own financial management. At Capital City Financial Partners, we actually have a lot of women-led households, and it's really encouraging to see that women are very involved in the planning process. So in retirement, we kind of think of it as a mountain. So you'll see the pre-retirement phase or the accumulation phase on the left side. This is when you're working, saving, and actively contributing. Then at the top, you have the flag. That's your retirement day. So we kind of think about this flag as the day you pack up your box, say goodbye to your coworkers, go home, celebrate. The next morning you wake up and you no longer have to pay any bills, right? We wish that was the case. However, the bills are going to keep coming in, but you're no longer going to have that paycheck coming in from work. So it's really important to know in retirement where that paycheck is going to be coming from. And that confidence and knowing where that paycheck is going to be coming from stems from having a written income plan, which is why we are so passionate about people having a written income plan to know where their money is going to be coming from and how long it's going to last them, and in which order they're going to take from which accounts. So that'll last you through retirement on the right side. So in retirement, that's the distribution phase. You're living off of everything that you've saved up for during the accumulation phase. Then at the bottom, you see the other flag. That's the end of our lives. So at that point, what's going to happen with anything we have left over? There's some people who want to spend their last dollar on the day they die, and if we knew that day, that would be easy. But ultimately, a lot of people like to give away to churches, charities, children, grandchildren, whatever it may be. So it's really important to have something in place with legacy planning so that it goes efficiently to whoever you want it to go to at the end of life. Now this mountain, you'll see it straight up and straight down in this photo, but we all know that's not really the case. On the left side, there are during the accumulation phase, there's gonna be some bumps and rocks along the way, just like it would be on a normal hike up a mountain. So maybe during the accumulation phase, you go uphill and you get a promotion or a raise. Maybe something happens where you have to pull out of the workforce. You kind of trip up on a rock. You have to pull out of the workforce to maybe take care of a loved one. Because as women, we naturally are the caretakers to take care of elderly parents or children who are sick at home or whatever it may be. We naturally are the caretakers, and sometimes that requires us to pull out of work for a period of time. So there's a lot of ups and downs along the way. Same thing in retirement. There's going to be some things that happen in that distribution phase, things that we sometimes can't control, like a pandemic, things that throw us off, rising tax rates. There's so many different things that can happen. So we need to prepare accordingly and make sure that we're ready for a lot of those bumps and rocks along the way. So as women, there are some unique retirement realities and risks that we face specifically. 55% of women fear outliving their savings and investments. So if you're in this camp, you're not alone. There's a lot of reasons for this, but a big reason is that women live longer than men, about 5 years on average. So we have about 5 more years that we have to prepare for having enough money for. And since we outlive our spouses by about 5 years, there's a lot of things that come into play with the death of a spouse. Hopefully you have life insurance in place to provide some tax-free income. But if you don't, it's all that more important to have a nest egg that's going to help guide you through living out retirement. Then when a spouse passes away, you also go down to 1 Social Security check versus 2. The good news is you get to keep the higher of the 2 Social Security checks, but again, you're going down from 2 checks to 1 check. And then finally, you are going to be filing single versus jointly when it comes to taxes. So that can make a big difference because most likely you're going to be paying more in taxes. So you can see why women have this fear that they're going to outlive their investments. But again, having a plan in place is going to help combat that. Nearly 50% of American women are either widowed, single, or divorced. And even if you don't fall into one of those camps today, it could become your eventual reality. So it's really important to address that and just know that that's a reality. And then have an income plan in place, not only at the beginning that sets you up for success, but also addressing it year after year so you can adjust along the way if any of these big changes happen. That's one of the mistakes a lot of women make, is having a plan but never readdressing it for the realities of life that come along the way. So we recommend readdressing your plan at least once a year because changes happen. Over half of women plan to retire after age 65 or not at all. And we believe that this stems from women just not knowing where they stand when it comes to retirement. So whether knowing that you are ready to retire tomorrow, whether you have about 7 years left, just knowing where that light at the end of the tunnel is. Even when you are in retirement, knowing exactly how long your money is going to last you brings a huge weight off of your shoulders. So we have a client who's a great example of this. She came to one of our events and heard our presentation. She had an existing advisor who she was happy with, and she had run a plan for her about 5 years prior. Well, she decided that she just wanted a second opinion. So she came in, we sat around the conference table, had a cup of coffee together, talked about her goals for retirement. So she wanted to travel. She wanted to have time with the grandchildren and pick up some new hobbies along the way to kind of fill her time. Well, we also talked about the assets that she had. So she had 2 different jobs. She was a really hard worker. She had Social Security coming in, a pension that came in. So she had enough coming in that we were able to take a look at her plan. And she was age 66 at the time. She had in her mind that she had to work until age 70 because that's what her previous advisor had advised her years before. Well, we ran her plan as it stood today. She had had a lot of changes in those 5 years. And we found out that she was actually able to retire that day. She was so excited. So she had 4 more years of life being able to do the things that she really wanted to do in retirement, the travel, hanging out with the grandchildren, all of the things that she wanted to do. She had 4 more years to do it simply because she sat down with a financial advisor and created a plan and revisited it. So now she's a client of ours, and we love hearing about how she's getting to enjoy her retirement, and giving her those extra years is just fuel for us to be able to keep moving forward and helping more people. So again, just knowing where you stand can bring a deep sense of comfort. So we really encourage you to find out what that number is for you. Again, women live about 5 years longer than men. Today, if you're 65 years old, there's a 1 in 4 chance that you're going to live beyond age 90, and a 1 in 10 chance that you're going to live beyond age 95. I actually just traveled to celebrate my grandmother's 100th birthday, which is so exciting. It was really cool to see even how healthy she is and just loving life still at 100 years. But I started to think, wow, I might have to plan. If I have that in my genes, I'm going to have to plan for decades of retirement. So it's really the reason that women have to address this is because we live longer. We're going to need more to cover that lifespan. So again, having a written plan in place to make sure that we're going to be okay. And when it comes to where our money is going to be coming from in retirement, we kind of take a look at some changes that have been going on the past few decades. So in your parents' retirement, they were able to heavily rely on pension. That's what the majority of their retirement was based off of. Social Security was about a third, and then they just needed a little nest egg on top to make sure that they were going to be okay to live throughout retirement and have enough money. Well, that's completely turned on its head now. Pension, if you're lucky enough to have it, which a lot of people just don't have pension anymore, it's usually a very small amount and not that reliable. Social Security is about 1/3, again, of what we're going to have in retirement. And then we see this big nest egg on top. So that puts much more pressure on you to create that nest egg because it's what you're going to be living off of. The big issue here is that there are some really, this is where we see people making the most mistakes. And what's more is those mistakes are really costly. So it's important to address those and make sure that you're set up for success. 3 of the biggest mistakes that we see here are asset allocation. So people may still be allocated. And I should mention that this nest egg is made up of things like your 401k, 403b, TSP, checking accounts, retirement accounts. That's what this nest egg is made up of. And a lot of times in those accounts, like a 401k, a lot of people have allocated the way that they used to back in their 30s, 40s, and they still are allocated the same way and taking on more risk than they should be in retirement. So again, having the asset allocation match where you are in life and readdressing that year after year. So a common mistake is the asset allocation, people taking on more risk than they should. Another common risk is asset location. So even if you love Apple stock and you want to hold on to it, whether you have it in your pre-tax account or your after-tax account can make a huge difference for you when it comes to taxes. And that's a very common mistake we see. So asset location, which accounts you have which assets in. It's important to take a look at that. And then finally, a big mistake that we see here is people paying more in fees than they need to be. So we like to help people take a look at exactly how much they're paying in fees, because a lot of people don't realize they're hidden inside mutual funds or whatever it may be. There's a lot of hidden fees. So we like helping people realize exactly how much they're paying in fees and helping them find ways to reduce those, because it's an instant gratification. When you reduce those fees, you automatically are increasing your rate of return. So let us help you find exactly where that is and help you avoid those common mistakes, because that's what you're going to be living off of in retirement. All right, so next I'm going to be talking about Social Security and a few things that women specifically need to address when it comes to Social Security. However, I want to give kind of a blanket statement to start that Social Security is very complex. If you've taken a look at it already, there are hundreds of different claiming strategies. So what we like to do is offer what we call Social Security optimization, where it looks at your specific situation, and we'll take a look at your top 3 or so best options for you, talk through those, and help you decide the best option for your specific situation. But in general, I'll talk about 4 things that women need to know when it comes to Social Security. So the first one is what we call eliminating zeros. So I have an example here of a husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. In this hypothetical example, let's pretend that they have the exact same job and they make the exact same amount. So you'll see here that Mrs. Jones, this is a chart of her earnings. You'll see in her 30s, there's a blank spot here for about 8 years or a little less than a decade that she is not earning any income. That's because they decided to start a family, and they decided that Mrs. Jones would stay at home with the children to help raise them until they got into elementary school or later in life in school. So while she was not making any money during those years, she is not earning income and she's not contributing into Social Security. Our Social Security is based off of our 35 highest income earning years. So in order to make up for those years that she wasn't working, she has to work more years on the back end to kind of fill in those 35 highest income earning years to make the most of her Social Security check. So ultimately, she's probably working longer than she anticipated or wanted to. You'll see Mr. Jones's earnings here. He does not have that period where he wasn't working. However, they as a couple are going to have to leverage the amounts to make sure that when it comes to Social Security claiming time, to make sure that they're optimizing the amount that they're getting. And what I mean by that is that on this, if you take a look at the right side, the average annual difference. So again, Mrs. Jones was not earning for quite a few years there and not contributing to Social Security for a few years though. So Mr. Jones's paycheck is going to be higher when he goes to claim Social Security because he earned more and put more in. Now, he's going to be earning that higher income, that higher check. If they decide that they're going to be both taking those checks and Mr. Jones passes away, Mrs. Jones gets to still keep the higher check, but she has to get rid of her check. So again, she gets to keep the higher of the 2 checks. However, she has to give up hers when he passes away. When it comes to widows and divorcees, so on the left side, you'll see the widow benefits. A lot of people don't realize that you can have, you can start taking reduced benefits as early as age 60 if you're a widow. And then furthermore, if you remarry after age 60, your survivor benefits are unaffected. So there are some benefits when it comes to that. If you're divorced, a lot of people don't realize that you must have been married for at least 10 years in order to claim spousal benefits as a divorcee. So we kind of had someone that made us laugh a couple of weeks ago. She said, well, had I known that, I would have hung on just a couple more years. So she made us laugh, but a lot of people don't realize that you must have been married for at least 10 years before you can claim spousal benefits when divorced. So there's a lot that goes into Social Security. Again, it's very complex. So we like helping people with their specific situation and finding out how to make the most of the money that you've worked so hard to put into the system. So what that looks like, this is a screenshot from our software, and we made up a client named Lottie since we have to work with general examples. And this is exactly what it looked like for her. So if she were to claim at age 62, her total lifetime benefit would have been $525,000, or a little bit more than. It takes a look at if you were to claim at full retirement age 67, it's about $200,000 more over her lifetime just by waiting those 5 extra years and not claiming right away, which is enticing. But then you take a look at if she were to retire at age 70 and wait until then to claim her Social Security, it was to the tune of about $275,000 more than she would have gotten in her lifetime if she started at age 62. So a lot of times you hear people say that it may make more sense for them to claim right away or to wait and let that number grow. There's a lot of things that go into it, but that's why it's so important to talk about your specific situation. But again, we can help you take a look and plug your numbers into this software that we have and tell you what your probability of success is in retirement based on the different ages that we can take a look at. We'll be happy to help you with that. So taxes, everyone's favorite subject. Taxes are so complex. There's so much that goes into it, and a lot of people just get overwhelmed. We like to talk about taxes not as tax prep and what you can do year over year, but as tax planning. So we like to take a look towards the future. An example I have of this is a client who is a big couponer. So every week she takes a look at the newspapers and the ads and clips coupons for a BOGO deal here or a dollar here, and she'll run around town and go to multiple different grocery stores. Well, she came in the other day and she was so excited, and she said, I have the best news. And with how excited she was, I thought maybe she had another grandchild or something. But she said, I have the best news. Publix accepts everybody's coupons. So we laughed, and we started talking about how for decades she had been clipping coupons, going around to a bunch of different stores, and she was using the coupons there to get the best deal. Well, I started thinking about, if she truly is going all around town to save $1 here or 50 cents here, is that really the best deal because she's using gas and her time and other resources? And taxes are kind of the same. So you may be saving on the short term here, and it may look nice to have that, but it could be causing you more in the future. So we like to take a look at entire tax planning. We want to help you save today, but we also need to take a look at what that's going to do for your future and hopefully permanently reduce your tax bill by making smart decisions today. So something that's very common, I know that this kind of looks confusing, but I'll walk through it with you today. This is what a common traditional IRA looks like. So if you have a traditional IRA, most likely you started contributing maybe in your 30s or so, or whenever you started working. So you started contributing money, and then eventually you take it out. So with a traditional IRA, let's take a look at age 35 over here. This person is depositing $5,000 every year throughout retirement. So when they deposit that $5,000 and contribute it to their traditional IRA, they get a tax break right away. So say they make $50,000 a year, they only have to pay income taxes on $45,000. So that's great. You don't have to pay, you pay lower taxes. Then we have that growing at a rate of about 7%. So throughout their entire working life, through age 65, they put deposits in of $155,000. And so they got to save on $155,000 of taxes, which is awesome. Then you'll see on the bottom right here, that grew to about $530,000. So that's the beauty of compound interest. That's why we're told to put money away, not touch it until we absolutely have to. So we contribute. Don't worry about the money that's in your retirement account. It's for your retirement. So the beauty of compounding interest is that we turned deposits of $155,000 into almost $530,000. That's great. That's why we do that. Then we take a look at the protection and distribution phase on the right side. So at age 66, this person retires. They have that $530,000 to start with. They're protecting it up until they have to take out their RMD. So for a few years there, it's still growing. They're not touching it. At age 72, they're required to take their RMD, or what's called a required minimum distribution. This is an amount that the government makes you take. They want to get their money back. So they say, okay, at some point, you got to start taking money out of here. So they're then going to get taxes, or you're going to have to pay taxes at the time that you withdraw it from your IRA. So think about, is your tax rate typically going to be higher in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, or is it going to be higher when you go to retire? A lot of people hope that their taxes will be lower in retirement, but a lot of people find that their tax rate is actually higher in retirement than it is early on in your 30s and your 40s. So this person taking withdrawals from age 72 until they pass away at age 85, it takes total withdrawals of $522,000. Remember, they put in $155,000 and got the tax break on that, but now they're having to pay taxes, most likely at a higher rate, on $522,000. So who really won here? The government, right? But that's not even the worst part of the story. If you look at the bottom here, when this person passes away at age 85, they still have almost $700,000 left in their account that they didn't even get to enjoy. And we really encourage our clients to enjoy everything that they saved for. So whenever we really encourage people to do the things that they want to do, those goals, the trips they want to take, the things that they have worked so hard for, the last thing you want to do is pass away and not have fully enjoyed it. Furthermore, that amount that's left in, the $700,000, who's going to inherit that? Most likely their children, their churches, their charities, and those people are going to have to pay taxes on that amount. So it almost becomes a tax burden if you leave too much that other people have to pay taxes on. So the total taxable amount on this account, again, they got a decrease and they got to benefit from about $155,000, but the government got to benefit from the taxes on over $1 million. So again, this is a traditional IRA. We don't like to talk about all of the hard things without giving a positive solution. So I would like for you to consider whether or not a Roth IRA conversion might make sense for you. So a Roth IRA is the exact opposite of a traditional IRA. You do have to pay taxes on the money today. You do not get that deduction like you would with a traditional IRA. However, you pay the taxes today and you never have to pay taxes on it again. It grows completely tax-free in your account. You don't have to pay taxes when you withdraw it, and your heirs or the people who inherit the money do not have to pay taxes on it either. So let's take a look at what that might look for you today. And the reason that I put this on the screen, you'll see on the left side tax brackets for single filers, and on the right side tax brackets for joint filers. So the reason I have 2017 versus 2022, obviously this is today's rates. The reason I'm using 2017 is because this is what rates were before the Trump tax cuts, or the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, went into place. So that went into place in 2018. It is a temporary tax cut that is going to sunset at the end of 2025. So in a few more years, in 2026, tax rates are going to be going up to at least what they were before the cut, so what they were in 2017, if not more. So again, we are in a temporarily lower tax environment, which gives us the opportunity to make some changes and be smart about taxes now before taxes go up again in the future, which we know is going to happen. It's a positive. They're going to be going up at least to this rate, if not more. So let's take a look at what that might look like for you. Let's say you're a single filer making $40,000 a year. So today you would be in the 12% tax bracket. In 2026, when the tax bracket go back to at least what they were before, you're now going to be in the 25% tax bracket. So it's not a trick question. Would you rather be paying taxes today at a 12% rate, or in just a few more years at a 25% rate? It's not a trick question. It's a big opportunity to take a look at potentially paying the money now and converting to a Roth IRA. Same if you're a joint filer. Let's say that you make $250,000. So today you would be in the 24% tax bracket. In 2026, you're going to be going up to the 33% tax bracket. Again, paying taxes today at that smaller amount, you're still going to have to take the hit. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. You're going to have to pay the taxes today, but does it make more sense to pay them at 24% or 33%? So we've been doing Roth conversion analysis for people for decades. And we have found in the past, before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it only made sense for a small amount of people and really benefited them. It's not that it hurt them, it's just it only made sense for a few people. Now that we're in this temporary low tax environment, we are finding that some type of Roth conversion makes sense for about 90% of people. Now, I'm not saying your entire traditional IRA needs to be moved to a Roth, and maybe you can just do a little portion, because you do have to make sure that with Social Security and Medicare and other things that are coming in, that it doesn't bump you up into another tax bracket. So that's why we provide an entire analysis of what that might look like for you to convert a portion of your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. Again, it's making sense for about 20 or 90% of people, and we would love to take a look at whether or not it makes sense for you. This is one of the biggest benefits. Again, we have this window of opportunity right now during this temporary low tax environment, and we're seeing this make a difference for so many people to pay the taxes today and permanently reduce their tax bill, which will cause a lot more confidence in having enough money for your future. So let us take a look at that for you. Then retirement healthcare. This is something that women specifically need to take a look at in retirement because we live longer, as we've been talking about. So long-term care. So at age 65, you start to go on Medicare. And Medicare does cover a lot. It's a great program. However, it doesn't cover things like co-payments, long-term care, and then with prescription drugs, you have to get an additional plan, which costs even more. So there's a lot of expenses that come with healthcare, and since we live longer as women, we have to address that and make sure that we are addressing that. So this is one of the biggest risks in retirement for women, is covering healthcare, especially when it comes to things like long-term care, because a lot of times we outlive those around us. So if you've ever been in an assisted living facility or a nursing facility, you look around and it's a majority of women. So again, that's something that we just need to address, budget for, and plan to protect our retirement funds from the cost. And there's a lot of things that go into that, but we want to make sure that we are planning for that and including that. So healthcare is something we really need to think about as women. All right, I have this picture of a bouquet. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is a market correction and things that women can do to prepare ourselves to make sure that we're going to be protected during a market correction, because it's inevitable. We're starting to see more and more of that as time goes on. We've been in a bear market for quite a while now, so we know it's coming. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when. But the way that I like to think about it is taking a look at a bouquet. So you see this on the screen, and I want you to be thinking about your particular portfolio and what your bouquet might look like. So think of maybe the roses are your retirement account, your 401k, your IRA, whatever it may be. So that's the roses that are in there. Maybe the lilies are your checking account. Maybe the greenery spread throughout is things like your bonds, your CDs, your safe money that you have. So there's a lot of different components that go into your portfolio. Not everything is in the market, or hopefully you don't have everything in the market, but there's a lot of different pieces and parts to the puzzle. As we all know, if we've ever had a bouquet like this on our counter, not the entire bouquet will die at the same time. So maybe the roses kind of wilt up sooner, And the reason I say that is because during a market correction, if roses represent what you have in the market, those might kind of wilt down and not be the most attractive in your portfolio. So you might take those out of your bouquet, and hopefully you are well diversified enough, as our industry calls it, diversification. Hopefully you're well diversified enough that your bouquet still looks pretty even without the roses. So the idea behind that is that it's really important to be well diversified and have a bunch of different pieces for your portfolio, so that if something were to happen to one of those, another example would be the bonds. So I think we said that was the greenery. Right now we have rising interest rates. The Fed said that they're going to be increasing rates at least a few more times this year. And as interest rates go up, the value of bonds goes down. So the value of your bonds is most likely going to continue to go down throughout this year. So there's different pieces and parts, not only a market correction, but other things that are going on, that you want to make sure that other pieces of your portfolio or your bouquet can kind of hang on and look pretty while other pieces are not doing so well. Not only that, but it's really important in your bouquet to make sure that you understand and are well aware of what each part is doing for you. So a lot of people may have certain assets tucked away that they purchased, or products that they've been sold, or whatever it may be in their portfolio, but they don't know what it's doing for them in relation to the goals that they have in retirement. So we really encourage women to take a look, women and men really, but women especially, take a look at what you have in your portfolio and make sure that each piece is intentional and is going to be getting you to the goals that you have in retirement. If not, maybe it's time to make some changes. And we'd be happy to walk through that with you and take a look at what you currently have and make sure that it is aligned properly with the goals that you have in retirement. So again, with a market correction, I kind of have 4 rules to prepare for that. The first one is don't get emotional. Easier said than done, right? A lot of people tend to make bad decisions when it comes to involving their emotions with a market correction. And I actually see that if you look in your handouts, there is an article in there about the role of emotions in decision making that I put together. You can take a look at that and download it, read it later, but there's a lot of emotions that go into financial decision making, and a lot of people make bad decisions. So one of the biggest benefits of having a financial advisor is behavioral coaching, kind of being that voice of reason that you can call and say, hey, I don't know what to do. I'm getting nervous about the market dropping. What should I do? And we can help you align your values with the assets that you have to make sure that you're comfortable and don't make bad decisions. So a lot of times when the market's going up, people feel good and they put more money in. When the market's going down, people get nervous and they take money out. But that ultimately leads us to being on the wrong side both times and diminishing our returns. So acting on emotion is not the best thing to do when it comes to the market. The good news here is that women actually statistically outperform men when it comes to the market. Given education like you're getting today, we tend to not act on our emotions as much as men when it comes to the market. So we've got that leg up. But it's really important to make sure that you're investing differently today than you were at the beginning of your working years. Like I said at that mountain earlier, the accumulation phase, it's okay to have a little bit more at risk because you won't act as emotionally because you have more time to make up for the time. If there were to be a market correction, you have more time to make up for it. However, as you near and are in retirement, you're going to feel a little more vulnerable if there were to be a correction, and you might act emotionally and make bad decisions. So we really encourage people to be more strategic as they near retirement about how much they have in the market. Which brings me to my second point, understand your actual risk. So again, people get really excited when the market's doing well. We've been in one of the longest market runs ever. So people get excited and they put more money in, see those gains. It's exciting. However, this ends up, if we keep on putting money into the market and taking it out of other things, this ends up stretching our risk tolerance more than we realize. So there's a lot of people who have a mismatch when we take a look at how much they're willing to have at risk and how much they currently have in their portfolio. That's one of the parts of our analysis when we sit down and talk with you, is taking a look at how much you have at risk and how much you are willing to take on. And so often there's a big mismatch here because people have kind of gotten carried away and gotten excited. But again, before a market correction happens, make sure that you address that. And because the biggest way to avoid these emotions is to take on less risk at a time that you can least afford the losses. So again, understanding your actual risk and never having more at risk or in the market than you're willing to lose if something were to happen, especially as you near retirement. The next one sounds kind of silly, but act your age. So there's a general rule of thumb in retirement that the amount that you could have in the market at any time or at risk is the number 100 minus your age. So when you are age 30, you can have about 70% of your portfolio in the market. At age 50, it drops down to about 50%. And then at age 70, you really shouldn't have any more than about 30% of your portfolio in the market for the reasons that we've been discussing. You really want to take on less risk at time that you can least afford the losses. And as you get older, again, there's less and less space for that because you really want to rely on the income that you have coming in, and you can't have that income or those paychecks coming from a paycheck directly from the stock market. That's not how it works. So again, act your age. As you get older, take on less and less and have less and less in the market because you need to move more towards that guaranteed income. And again, this is something that we can do for you with the income plan that we put together for you, is have that plan that slowly steps away from the market into more guaranteed investments. And then finally, create an actual plan. So there's a lot of people who come in and meet with us and they say, yeah, I have a plan, it's all up here. Well, having a plan up here versus an actual written plan is, you know, a lot of people find more confidence once they have more of an actual plan in place. So that's something that we do for people. That's what we're passionate about. We help put together what we call our Capital Confidence Plan. It addresses 5 of the biggest issues that we see, especially when it comes to retirement. So we don't just focus on investments. Investments are important, and that's a part of what we call our Capital Confidence Plan, investments. But you also have to think about other things. So you have to think about things like taxes, as we talked about earlier, that can make a huge difference. You have to think about things like your income plan, your healthcare plan, and your estate plan. So along with investments, we cover all of those things in our Capital Confidence Plan, which helps you better understand where you stand. And this ultimately reduces that fear that people have that we've been talking about not having enough in retirement. So having an actual written plan brings so much confidence and peace. So what we're offering today, hopefully you've learned something new today. What we're offering is a meeting with one of our advisors to sit down. It should take about 45 minutes, give or take, and this is completely complimentary. So during this meeting, we'll take a look at the goals that you have in retirement. We'll take a look at the your current portfolio and what you have, that nest egg that we were talking about. We'll take a look at everything that you have and everything that you want to have in the future. And we'll create an income plan for you, and an entire plan that addresses those 5 issues I just talked about, which is what we call our Capital Confidence Plan. We'll give that to you completely complimentary. If you currently have an advisor who maybe has only been helping you with investments, you can take that plan to them and help them give them a step-by-step guide to help you with things that they should be helping you with, like income planning, taxes, healthcare, and estate planning. So they can help you with so much more than just investments. Maybe you like to DIY, do it yourself. And if you want to implement it on your own, we're completely fine with that. We know that we got you on a better foot, and just know that you're confident knowing that you have that. Or hopefully you're seeking a team of experts, and we'd be happy to be there for you and walk alongside you throughout your retirement to make sure that you're ready for it and that you're confident and comfortable knowing that you're on the right plan. Kind of think about it as a GPS. You have to know where you are today, or your starting address, and where you want to be in the future, or your ending address, to create that plan in the middle, or the directions that are going to take you there. And that's what we love. We're so passionate about providing people with that to find confidence in their financial future. So I'll leave you with this. Picture a day when you no longer have to wonder where your money is going to be coming from in retirement, or how long it will last you, because you have a solid plan in place. Picture a day when your grandchildren come up to you excitedly saying, "Thank you so much for taking us on the best vacation ever. We'll never forget that." Picture a day when you can live the lifestyle you desire, and you have the freedom to make the choices that you want, knowing that you have this plan in place. We want to provide that for you. So after today, we'll be sending out a short survey and giving you a call. So hopefully you can set up your complimentary meeting with us. I hope that you learned something new today, and we look forward to helping you be more confident in your financial future. Thank you.